Hey, stop scrolling for a second. At an engagement dinner in front of 40 guests. A housekeeper grabbed the bride-to-be by the back of the head and pushed her face directly into the cake she'd just cut. It looked, for one horrifying second, like the end of that housekeeper's career and possibly her freedom. It was actually the only thing that saved the groom's life. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. Not yet. Just stay with me because this one moves fast. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we get into it, tell me where you're watching from today. I love reading where you all are. This is a story about loyalty, quiet observation, and the courage it takes to do something that looks completely insane in order to stop something far worse. So settle in because this one moves. Adrian Vance was 41 years old, founder of Vance Biotech, a pharmaceutical research company built on real breakthroughs. He was private and careful, a habit that deepened after his first wife, Charlotte, died of cancer 6 years earlier. In 2 months, he was set to marry Simone Beaumont, a woman he'd met through a business connection a year earlier. Elegant, patient, and quietly devoted in a way that finally convinced him it was safe to let someone in again. What almost no one knew was that Adrian's estate, recently expanded by a major licensing deal, would transfer substantially to Simone the moment they married, under an agreement she had gently, repeatedly insisted on, so it never had to be discussed again. Nadia Okonkwo had worked as head housekeeper at the Vance estate for nearly 4 years. Hired not long after Charlotte's death, Adrian had treated her with real decency from the start, building her schedule around her daughter's school pickups, insisting she take real vacation time. She'd grown genuinely protective of him over the years. For 3 weeks before that dinner, Nadia had noticed something wrong. Adrian, normally energetic, had started having dizzy spells and nausea, dismissed by his doctor as wedding stress. But Nadia managed the kitchen inventory, and she noticed the symptoms clustered around meals Simone personally oversaw. She told herself she was imagining it. Then the pattern held for a second week and a third. She started quietly tracking it in a notebook. Dates, meals, symptoms. She almost went to Adrian directly more than once. But what would she say? That she had a feeling based on grocery deliveries and intuition? Adrian was a scientist. Simone was, by every outward appearance, exactly the loving partner she presented herself as. Nadia had no proof. Just dread she couldn't shake. The breaking point came 4 days before the wedding. At the engagement dinner for 40 guests, Simone had personally requested the cake from an exclusive bakery, kept in a section of the kitchen only she was allowed near before the cutting. That day, Nadia watched Simone disappear into the kitchen alone twice, each time longer than checking a cake should take. The second time, nearly 40 minutes after the first, Nadia's unease turned into something close to certainty. She slipped into the kitchen and found a small, mostly empty vial hidden behind serving trays near the cake, and a faint chemical smell near the base tier that had no business being there. She had maybe 90 seconds before Simone would return and find her standing there. She could quietly confront Simone privately, and risk her denying everything, disposing of evidence, and trying again more carefully. She could go straight to Adrian mid-event with nothing but a notebook and an unlabeled vial, an accusation easily dismissed as overreaction. Or she could do something dramatic enough that nobody in that room could look away from it. Before the cake was served, she chose the third option, knowing exactly how it would look and what it would cost her. The cake had just been cut. The first slice lifted for photos, Simone's hand resting on Adrian's arm, smiling for the cameras. When Nadia crossed the room fast, reached her before anyone registered what was happening, and pushed her face directly into the cake, the room erupted. Gasps. A dropped glass, Adrian's stunned voice demanding an explanation. Security moving toward Nadia within seconds. Simone straightened up, frosting smeared across her face, already turning to demand Nadia's termination. Nadia didn't run and didn't apologize. "Test it," she said, loud enough for the whole room. "Test the cake before anyone eats another bite. I have proof this wasn't safe, and I needed everyone to stop before another slice got served." Adrian looked from Nadia's unwavering expression to the cake to Simone's face, now shifting from fury towards something closer to panic. Nadia, what are you talking about? I found this in the kitchen an hour ago, Nadia said, setting the vial and her notebook on the table. I've been tracking a pattern for 3 weeks. Every time you felt sick, it's been after a meal she made or requested. I didn't have proof strong enough to say anything before tonight. I found this hidden near the cake an hour ago, and there wasn't time to explain calmly before it went out to 40 people. This is insane, Simone snapped, cake dripping from her chin. She's clearly having some kind of breakdown. Then let them test it, Nadia said, turning to face her. If I'm wrong, I'll resign tonight and apologize publicly. But if I'm right, 40 people were about to eat something dangerous, and you were about to marry someone who's been poisoning you for weeks. The word landed like a physical weight. A guest who happened to be a physician stepped forward immediately, asking that no one touch the cake until it could be examined. Adrian looked down at the vial, then at his own hands, thinking through every dizzy spell he dismissed as stress. Call an ambulance, he said quietly. And call the police. Nobody eats anything else until we know what's in it. Lab results confirmed within days what Nadia's notebook had already suggested: trace amounts of a substance in the cake's base layer. And toxicology on Adrian showing low but accumulating levels matching her documented pattern exactly. Investigators later determined it wasn't meant to be immediately fatal. It was a slow, deliberate strategy designed to look like a natural decline, timed to worsen after the wedding. Once the estate transfer was legally locked in, Simone was arrested within the week. The trial, nearly a year later, revealed she'd done something similar before, an earlier engagement to a wealthy widower that ended when he suffered an unexplained decline, recovering slowly after she quietly vanished from his life. No charges had been filed then. This time, Nadia's notebook, entered as evidence and read aloud entry by entry, made the pattern impossible to dismiss. Simone was convicted on multiple counts. A week after that dinner, once the chaos had settled, Adrian found Nadia in the kitchen, going through her usual routine. I owe you my life, he said. I've been trying to figure out how to say that properly for a week, and there isn't a version that sounds adequate. You don't owe me anything, Nadia said. I should have come to you sooner. I spent 3 weeks afraid of sounding paranoid instead of just telling you what I was seeing. You had a notebook full of dates and a bad feeling, and you were right, Adrian said. Most people would have talked themselves out of it entirely. It stopped being a hunch, Nadia said. It just took me 3 weeks to admit that to myself, because the alternative was terrifying. Why the cake, though? You could have pulled me aside privately with the vial. Because a quiet conversation wouldn't move fast enough, Nadia said. She was standing next to that cake with a room full of witnesses and cameras. If I'd pulled you aside, she'd have had a few minutes alone in that kitchen again, and any remaining evidence would have disappeared. I needed everyone to stop and look before that cake left the table. I decided I'd rather look insane for 5 minutes than stay quiet and be right too late. In the months that followed, Adrian established a trust in Nadia's name. Not a reward, he told her, but an acknowledgement that her vigilance had a value no salary ever reflected. Nadia initially refused it, and eventually accepted a smaller version structured as an education fund for her daughter, Amara. One evening months later, Amara asked her mother, "Were you scared?" "Terrified," Nadia admitted. "The whole time. Before I did it, and especially after." "Then why'd you do it?" "Because I kept imagining what it would feel like afterward if I stayed quiet and something happened to him. I decided I could live with people thinking I'd lost my mind for 5 minutes. I didn't think I could live with staying silent and being right too late." Here's what this story really asks of us. It's easy, from a safe distance, to imagine we'd always speak up the moment something feels wrong. In practice, the fear of being wrong keeps most people quiet far longer than they'd like to admit. Nadia spent 3 weeks afraid of sounding paranoid. And when the moment came that she couldn't afford to wait any longer, she chose to look reckless rather than stay silent and be right too late. Sometimes protecting someone doesn't look graceful. Sometimes it looks like chaos. Like a scene nobody understands until the truth catches up to it. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat today, I'd love for you to hit that like button. It truly helps this channel grow. If you haven't already, please subscribe, because we share stories just like this one every single week. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I'll see you in the next one.